seemed to me like people expected this to be Ohio State versus Bowling Green or Buffalo. And what it was Ohio State versus Nebraska, a middle of the road Big Ten team with comparable talent at many positions. Now, not the same. And, most of their teams, 3 stars and 4 stars. Most of Ohio State's team is 4 stars and 5 stars. And yet, a lot of that gets kind of neutralized when you go out there to play an 11-on-11 football game. I think people lost sight of that with some of the unrealistic expectations. They beat them 48-7 last year in Nebraska, 41 points. This year they beat them 52-17, and it was 35 points. And there were a couple breakdowns on defense early in the game. They gave up 176 yards in the first quarter and a half, 2 touchdown drives, I think 78 and 75 yards, and had everybody kind of scratching their head. It was 14-all with 8 minutes to go in the first half. But Ohio State, in something that has been a hallmark in recent years, played the end of the second quarter flawlessly and then came out in the third quarter. And I love this is my favorite go-to phrase. They slammed the car door on their head to start the third quarter, and it got to 38-14 pretty quickly after a fumble return for a touchdown, and it was all over but the shouting at that point. So Justin Fields, nothing short of fabulous, 20 of 21 passing. And I had a buddy one time who made 24 out of 25 free throws in a, elementary or middle school free throw shooting contest. And as he's walking to the car, his dad says, but that one you missed, just, it was right there. And that's what everybody was talking about, that he had Olave wide open on a touchdown and got just a little too much air underneath of it. Leonardo DiCaprio Boodle came back and made the play after he had already been beaten for a deep touchdown by Garrett Wilson. So he knew his bacon was on the firing line right there. He got back there somehow and upended Olave for the one incompletion of the day for Chris Fields. He also ran the ball for over 50 yards and a touchdown. So I would call it a B+, A- effort, depending on which unit you're looking at. And again, it was a Big Ten game. This was not UAB or Youngstown State. This was a Big Ten conference game, and Ohio State did very well, I thought, in opening the season last Saturday.
I thought the worst throw Fields made was the one to Ruckert that led to a pass interference. That was so he deserved an incompletion for that one. So maybe that's a little bit of the ball don't lie there, where maybe Olave could have caught the one that he didn't. But that throw to Ruckert should at least be acknowledged as being a bad one. But that was the only bad throw he had all day. And it really was just – you could see the fear in the way Nebraska played those receivers. I saw one picture, a screen grab of a safety like 20 yards downfield pre-snap, just because they were afraid of what Chris Olave was going to do. And you could watch this game and just think, why is Ohio State even bothering running the ball? Because they could throw the ball whenever they want, however they wanted to do it, whenever, to whomever. And then you see on third downs or whatever, and fourth down, and you're like, well, Garrett Wilson's going to get the ball here. And I thought he had a great debut in the slot. Defensively, the 2 quarterback runs, I think, accounted for 40% of all of Nebraska's rushing yards. The first drive by Luke McCaffrey, you saw before the snap, Baron Browning is stumbling, trying to get into position, and the ball gets snapped. He immediately gets blocked. I think Marcus Hooker misses the tackle, and then off McCaffrey goes. Later towards the end of the third quarter, Adrian Martinez scrambles for 40-some yards or something like that for the other big gainer. But other than that, I mean, they held Dedrick Mills to like 30 yards rushing on 10 carries. The running backs didn't really do anything. It was 2 drives for Nebraska and then a scramble later on by Adrian Martinez. And other than that, I thought the defense played pretty well. There's always going to be issues. I thought it was interesting. We talked to Marcus Hooker today. He said it took them a little bit of time after that first drive. They were still in practice mode, and it took them a little bit of time to get out of that. 4 drives or four plays on that first drive, and they score a touchdown. And I guess that certainly looked like practice mode. Then I guess that justifies, or that explains that first drive, because they were a little bit slow. But that's also the first game jitters and just feeling each other out, Kevin.
Yeah, you guys have really hit upon a lot of the points there. I think the player I was looking to potentially have a big game for them, Wan'Dale Robinson, was largely held in check in the game as well. Nothing that really jumped out to me when I went back and watched the game a couple of times. I even had to go to the roster and make sure I had his number right, because I'm like, I don't see this guy. A lot of people wanted to compare him to being a Rondale Moore type of player. Ohio State wishes it would have held Rondale Moore to what they were able to bottle up Wan'Dale Robinson for. Yeah, I agree that the pass to Ruckert probably should have been, just even though there was a penalty that was kind of a soft penalty that negated an incompletion, probably should have been one there. Over on Buckeye Grove, a lot of people have been clamoring for Steel Chambers to ascend up the depth chart because they felt he had more wiggle and looked better. But I've gone through a lot of openers for Ohio State in terms of just when they do start a season, especially with a new running back, and it wasn't, it's not always a smooth transition at this point. But we've heard so much about how great this line's going to be, this offensive line, a lot better at pass pro than the run blocking, in my opinion, and watching the game back. I think it'll get there, but Penn State certainly provides its share of challenges, and I won't get ahead of myself. But I'm probably around a B+ effort in terms of how I felt about Ohio State's performance, all things considered.
I'll just redirect really quick. Again, you had 6 new starters on the Ohio State defense and a couple new starters on the offensive line. You had a lot of guys who played more plays in that game than they'd ever played before, and probably in some instances more plays in that game than they'd ever played in their entire life previously at this level. And so it's going to look a little wonky at times. And you did not have a preliminary game or two to work out some of those kinks. And for them to come through it the way they did, not very many penalties, no turnovers, I don't believe. Kind of a crisp, on the whole, somewhat of a crisp game. I mean, yeah, there were a couple breakdowns. Nebraska was about 25 minutes good, whereas Ohio State was about 60 minutes good, in my opinion. And that's kind of the difference. And I think that is something that's going to be borne out. And we see it with Clemson. We see it with Alabama. They're 60 minutes good. Teams may play them tough for 25, 30, 40, 45 minutes, but the teams that they play don't have the depth, the size, or the speed that they have. And I think the same thing applies at Ohio State, that you just wear them down eventually and beat them, in the final 20 minutes of the game, which is kind of how it happened.